suppose it was about 1997. I retired from a business that I had and decided, in a sense, kind of to withdraw from that and seek a bit of seclusion. And so I ended up with, from 97 to about 2007, 2008, I went to the Yukon, a remote part of the Yukon, lived in a small cabin, and to do some writing and reflecting on what I wanted to do or thought I should do. I think I was 55 years of age then. And wonderful opportunity to engage with a small community of about 500. And my it turned out to be my main objective there was trying to figure out a way to bring a whole variety of different people together. Indigenous people, Parks Canada that owned and operated the largest protected wilderness area in the world, and then some loggers. They call themselves RED, the Responsible Economic Development, and it was just this absolute conflict. It was ugly. There were fist fights, and the first meeting I held, a consultant put up a map of what might be the ideas, and some people just ripped it down, and it was going absolutely nowhere. So from that, I started something called the Society for Education and Culture, which was an arts program, because I figured you're not going to get people to talk about ideas until you can get them to sit down and sing and story and dance together. So did that for almost 8 years, and I did a couple hundred programs, and it worked. At one evening, I look over there, and there's the leader of the Green Party in Canada talking to what he called himself pridefully, wonderful gentleman, a redneck developer, and they were dancing together to some Cuban music that you could feel in your gut. All of a sudden, you're out of your head and into your gut. And from there on, it started to work. People started to sit around the table and start to share ideas. And there was some sort of magic. So I understood the power of art to do that. I look like a dog. But what I did not have any experience at was how do you take that sort of camaraderie, that sort of collectivism, and work that into public policy. And so, I consulted with the Green Party, and matter of fact, I wrote some of the platform in 2003 for the Green Party, consulted with the government of the day, which was an NDP government that was replaced by a conservative government, and now a liberal government. And I consulted with all those, and I never changed my message. And they understood it. But when that got into public policy and pulled apart with party politics, it started to fail. So I thought, I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to policy. So after 10 years, I came back here, and which I hadn't been here. I was at Dalhousie in 1970, 71. I hadn't been here since. So I'm here doing some reflecting, and there was an opening for someone on the Planning Advisory Committee. So I applied for it, got that. And it was my opportunity to really see how that part of the planning process worked and how council was working. And I thought, I'm real interested in trying to become a councillor. So I did. I was fortunate enough to be elected. And that was 8 years ago. And I've absolutely loved every minute. Yeah, I've absolutely loved it. So some of those things I were writing about sustainable energy and local place-based education, affordable housing, clean air and water, a forestry initiative that's really centered on ecological principles. I thought all that was possible. In theory, I knew it was possible, but could it be worked into a council, sit around a council chamber and get ideas from a whole bunch of different councillors that came from different perspectives and work that into local government? And it worked. It became part of our economic development strategy, our forestry strategy, and for 20 years, gosh, it's longer than that, I wrote one of the first paper for me on climate change in 1972. And I called it creating a climate for change. And that's what I've been doing, I think, trying to create this climate for change around climate change. So it all started to fit together, and we did our our climate change, municipal climate change action plan. So all of that is kind of in place, and I had just a small piece to do with that, because it's all those other 10 or 11 councillors around the table that added to it. So it worked into documents that had been approved and passed by council, and I thought, now's the time for me to again withdraw. So that's what I've done. I'm going to sit back for a while. And when I first ran for council, I was 63, 64, and I'm 73 now. And I thought, this is the time for me to focus my energy back on this particular piece of land. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to rewild this piece of ground that's here. I'm trying to test out a lot of those things that individual citizens can do, with the idea I might be able at one time take some of these ideas back to the new council for discussion. And I'm one of those. I'm absolutely overjoyed with every councillor that we had, and that I had an opportunity to work with. For me, the magic happened. The glue was when this council had the wisdom to hire John Ferguson as the CAO. He brought the legal, political, administrative knowledge that could tie all this together. And so this council just floated ideas around from climate change to economic development to place-based education, which for me is Gordonston. So all those are in place. And John fine-tuned all that, would bring it back to council, would kick it around again. He would take it again and fine-tune it. When we thought we got it right, we asked John to do it, and it worked. So without that piece, none of this dream would have happened on how Annapolis County and how individuals could live on the land again. So that's what I'm doing. I'm withdrawing for a bit to really check out my worldview, see if it's right, see if it's changed, and I've got some other more global initiatives that I'm working on, and we can talk about that at some time as well. It's real interesting. I don't feel I can categorically say I'm optimistic or pessimistic. I do know I'm optimistic about putting policies in place that are necessary to confront the challenge that we have in terms of climate change. But the older I get and the more that I see, I think that the overall prognosis for the fate of the planet and fate of humankind is absolutely perilous at the moment. I'm, like I say, optimistic and pessimistic. Clearly, the evidence suggests to me that we have gone too far in terms of this climate crisis that we've created. And I don't see a way out of it in enough time. I think what we may experience is near-term societal collapse, where nation states begin to collapse more than they have. The incidents of war and famine are going to increase. Climate refugees are going to exponentially go up. I think that's going to happen. My optimism returns because I think at the end of the day, it's these small communities that learn how to work together under the principles of being neighborly that are going to save these pockets of, I call them pockets of sanity, or Margaret Wheatley calls them islands of sanity. These places that are sane enough to get through this, but it's going to be around a lot of those principles that Annapolis County now have in place, which is take care of local needs from local resources, not take too much of your forest land. And so I think that's the key. And so when I think about that, even though it falls apart, there's going to be some stability in these small places like Annapolis County. But that does not mean all those world stressors are going to just hammer us. So we're just on that little fragile precipice. But I think we can either fall forward into absolute chaos, or we could fall back into these small, stable communities. That's where I think the future is. Good girl. What I know is over the last 8 years, the work that this council has produced has been absolutely astronomical, and the staff are absolutely overloaded trying to respond to what we've attempted to do. And some of those strategies that we have in place, Economic Development Strategy 2050 and the Forestry Report 2018, our Municipal Climate Change Action Plan, our strategic plan. The strategic plan outlines that Annapolis County wants to be a compassionate community. And so in that sense, and I have to thank Councillor Morrison for that, to raise that issue, and the warden brought that language forth. And that compassionate piece that made everything else work. And if councillors are compassionate about the places they live and compassionate about the other councillors they work with, and have the ability to do some deep listening, all of this stuff is possible. Nothing is beyond our reach. But we just hit at that moment in time, and there are particular moments that things happen. Ideas have to happen at the right time. But 2012 to 2020 was the right time to make some unbelievably progressive changes. So other individuals and other councillors have asked me, is it possible? Absolutely, it's possible. Not only is that possible in individual municipalities, but there's ways to dovetail all that together so collectively that this can happen on a broader scale throughout Nova Scotia. So that's possible. It takes a council that is smart, a council that's willing to listen to one another, a council that's willing to set aside their agenda to have a discussion and come up with a collective decision. Some councils can't do that. This one could, but every council has the potential to do that. And the overlay on all that is the Municipal Government Act that says not only can you do a lot of this stuff, but we encourage you to do that. The interesting part that has, in a sense, freaked out a lot of people is this idea that we felt it necessary, and rightly so, to do a lot of our work in closed sessions. And the reason that was necessary to get us through this climate change mess, this near-term societal collapse that I think is real, it's going to take some sort of visionary thinking involving business principles. As soon as you do that, if government starts to operate like a business, then everything changes in terms of requests for proposals, all those things that have to go out that councils have to start doing. I think you're going to see progressive councillors spend more of the time in closed sessions because they take care of their own local needs from local resources. That's what it's going to take. And what I'm proud of is we never went in camera for the wrong reasons. And some people said, well, you're in council, you were in camera for a long time. Doesn't make any difference how long it takes you to deal with the issue. As long as you operate under the Municipal Government Act and go into camera for specific reasons, that's the way to do it. And I tell you, Larry, that's the future. It's going to take that. It's not trying to be secretive. It's trying to be smart. And that's what we've done. Other municipalities can do that, and I think they're starting to do it. Good girl. Good girl.